Hello, everyone, and welcome into the 10th episode of Jack's Mailbag, the series where I answer your Gamecock athletics questions. If you have a question you want answered on next week's episode, be sure to drop a comment below on this YouTube video, or I'll have a post on the Insiders Forum on GamecockCentral.com where you can drop any of your questions you have and you want me to answer next week. For this week, we're going to be talking a little bit of hoops with some big recruiting news, as well as looking ahead to this weekend series for South Carolina baseball with number 2 Arkansas. Should be a good one. Starts tonight at 7 p.m. at Founders Park. I'll be there for all 3 games this weekend. And without further ado, let's get into our questions for this week. Our first one comes from ATS Gamecock 11, who says, "Good morning, sir. Thoughts on the Cam Scott situation? Should we be expecting good news? Does this affect Esigen's decision? Thanks." So, this question was, asked Monday, and now I'm recording this on Friday. And if you haven't figured out by now, Cam Scott has officially committed to South Carolina men's basketball in Lamont Paris. Um, First off, it's a huge, huge, huge deal for this program. It's another big piece added, in Lamont Paris's tenure at Carolina. He, obviously brought in Gigi Jackson a few years ago. He also was able to, get Colin Murray Boyles, a huge in-state kid. And now you're able to get Cam Scott, who was originally committed to Texas, but now he's coming to South Carolina, and it's a huge, huge flip for this program. And if you don't know much about Cam Scott, he's actually a local kid, like I said. Played his ball at Lexington High School, which is right nearby. He's a 6'5", 180-pound shooting guard, and he's a 4-star guard. So definitely a good player. And I think, watching some of his tape, I like the way he's able to just drive to the basket and make plays there. But he's also a good shooter, right? He was a big scorer in high school, and I think that's going to play really well for South Carolina. Now, how this affects someone like Connor Esigen, who is in the transfer portal, will be coming from Wisconsin. He hasn't landed on a school yet, to my knowledge, but South Carolina's in the mix for his services. I mean, honestly, how this does affect him long term, like what does this do for next year? I mean, let's be honest, guys. I mean, this kid from Wisconsin, I mean, he didn't score much at all last year. He played in 33 games, had averaged 7.3 minutes per game, and only had 3.5 points. So I think it's, I don't know how big of a deal it's going to be. Now, when you look at his stats from 2 years ago, I mean, he was averaging almost 12 points a game in 27 minutes of action. So I don't know what exactly went wrong, went differently, because his numbers are way down compared to the 2022-23 season. But I think Esigen can still be a big add for South Carolina. And look, with Cam Scott, I mean, is the expectation that he plays right away? I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I think maybe, right? He's going to have to compete for a job regardless, right? It's not going to be just given to him. But I think combined with all the other recruits they're bringing in and whoever they get out of the portal, I think they're going to end up getting some good guys out of that, out of the transfer portal. I think this team really has the chance to be better than they were this year. They had a ton of talent this year. Very good team. And look, I mean, South Carolina men's basketball, I think, is on the rise, and next year can definitely be another step in the right direction towards getting back to the NCAA tournament and then making more progress from there, going up, maybe advancing a round or two. Next question comes from Jeff 2001, who asks, "Do you think Kimball is start Tuesday?" He had been pitching better. So, like I said before, when I do this series, I typically post this on the Insiders Forum, and then I usually answer the questions either Thursday or Friday at the end of the week. So just keep that in mind when you're asking these questions, guys. That they won't be answered right away. I typically do it in video format just because I think it's a little more interactive, a little more fun that way to do it, and it's something interesting to do for me. So, but anyway, I'll answer the question just as on face value. So. Obviously, Roman Kimball did not pitch on Tuesday against Citadel, but he is starting tonight against Arkansas and Hagen Smith. That's going to be a very interesting matchup. And I talked about it a little bit yesterday on Leaving the Yard, a special random edition right after Mark Kingston's Thursday press conference. And the decision with starting Roman really comes down to, well, first off, Eli Jones gives you the most length out of all the starters, and I think Kingston felt that, pitching him on Saturday in that sort of scenario gives you the best chance to win as many games as possible, right? And I think with Roman, it's not, people want to say, oh, South Carolina's punting Friday, right? Hagen Smith's a really good pitcher, this and that. Well, Roman Kimball's also pitching a lot better lately, right? His outings have been a lot better as of late. I think it's dating back at least like 4 or 5 outings now where he's pitched really well. I think his command's a lot better. He's not walking as many batters, and his defense has been good behind him too. So it's all working together to really turn out to be, what's been very good appearances lately for him. And I think starting him tonight is going to be, a bit. It's big for him, right? This is his biggest outing probably of his college career against the number 2 team in the country. He has a chance to really solidify himself, getting back into this weekend rotation, solidifying himself like, hey, I'm here to pitch, every weekend for this team as a starter, this and that. And I think it could really work out well. And honestly, Kingston was saying, his what he was saying kind of what kind of checks out, right? Because Kimball's opponent batting average against is just 169, which is the lowest on the team. And then Kingston was saying he has arguably the best stuff on the pitching staff, which isn't that hard to believe. It's not that big of a stretch, guys, because I think he definitely has the caliber type of stuff to go out there and get outs for this team. I mean, we've seen it. It's just if he commands the zone and throws strikes, that's when he's going to be at his best. He also needs to pitch with confidence, which I think he's been doing lately. And it's not going to really take much for the adrenaline to be boosting today, and him feeling a little bit of that swagger that he normally pitches with. And I think he does better in these types of situations. It's like I said before, it's going to be a huge spot for him. I think I love the way the weekend rotation really is shaping out. People want to say that Kingston doesn't know what he's doing, and that we're 37 games into the year and he's still mixing and matching with the rotation. Let's put it this way. Would you rather have him put out the same 3 guys every weekend, regardless of how they pitch? And think about it. It gives the opponent kind of a leg up as to watching film on what this guy does every weekend. I don't know. And I think it also helps with the element of surprise to, South Carolina's going TBA on Sunday. I think having that listed as a question mark for right now leaves Arkansas kind of at a point where they can't, strategize for how, let's say Matthew Becker was going to be starting on Sunday. It kind of like, Arkansas now has to, they're not going to be having as much time to, watch film on that guy and, see what he throws and stuff. It's kind of a thing where you'll find out maybe 2-3 hours before the game and, you've really got your homework cut out for you. So I think it helps in that aspect. And look, it's mixing, matching. As long as they kind of have their rotation figured out by regional play, I think they're going to be fine, right? I think you need to have your guys that are going to go out there and get outs in the postseason. By then, if they're still figuring it out, then that's kind of an issue. But for right now, I like the idea of the element of surprise. I think it works. And look, if South Carolina wins 2 out of 3 or sweeps this weekend, no one's going to be complaining or anything like that. So I think while it's easy to get frustrated with that sort of stuff, look, if it works, it works. And I think it is going to be the right move ultimately to help South Carolina win this series. Next question comes from Love My Gamecocks, who asks, any word on likelihood that Jerzenbeck comes back next year, or will he enter the draft? We need quality arms. So I've gotten this question before, and I'll kind of answer a bit then. I actually spoke with Nick Proctor on former South Carolina right-hand pitcher a few weeks ago on one of these episodes, kind of asking that question, like, what should Jerzenbeck do? And this is in reference to Eli Jerzenbeck, who came to South Carolina as a freshman pitcher last year, had really good stuff. He was kind of hyped up to be eventually a Friday night ace for South Carolina in the future. And unfortunately, not long into his freshman year, he underwent Tommy John surgery. He's out for all this year, and he'll be able to come back for 2025 probably. But it's going to be interesting to see whether he goes down the MLB route or he goes and stays in college for another year. Now, if it were me in his shoes, again, I don't know what his projections are looking like right now. He could be, 3rd, 4th round draft pick. But me personally, I don't think he's going to be that high of a draft pick. He's got great stuff. It's not that. It's just the fact that, like, do you really want to take a guy that high in the draft that hasn't pitched in very long and honestly didn't have the best numbers as a freshman, right? I mean, look, he had his moments where he was great, but at the same time, he wasn't perfect. He got hit around a good bit, and I think for him, I think it does benefit him coming back for his junior year and look, earning a spot in the rotation, pitching every weekend, and showing that, hey, I can go out there and throw 6 innings each week and really build your stock to be a first round draft pick in, I guess it would be 2025 in the summer next year. Um, or I think that would be right. But anyway, that's kind of the long answer. I do think the short answer is I do think he should come back next year. I think that would benefit him greatly. If he's seeing a good amount, I think it all comes down to money too. Um, if he's getting a good enough draft grade, if he knows he's gonna be picked high enough, then by all means, maybe go to the draft. I don't know. If he's getting a good signing bonus, who knows? But again, you also have to think about with going down that route. If you go down the pro route, you're setting yourself up to be in the minor leagues for at least 2 to 3 years. And from all the stories and stuff that we've heard with minor league guys and the experience of playing at that level of baseball, it's not exactly fun, right? I mean, it's not an easy life to live. You're basically living paycheck to paycheck, and it's a grind to get to the MLB, right? It's not like the NFL or the NBA where if you're a first round draft pick, you're going straight to the MLB. Or you know what I mean? One of those pro leagues. With the MLB, it's think of like Paul Skeens, for instance, gets picked number one overall by the Pirates last year from LSU. He's now in the minor leagues, grinding away. He'll get called up, I think, this year. But the point is that everyone has to go through this, and sometimes it takes 6 months. Sometimes it takes 10 years. Right? We've seen guys that have spent their entire life playing in the minor leagues and not get their chance to go to the MLB until they're in their 30s. So, I mean, I'm not saying Jerseybeck's going to be that kind of guy. But again, it's not as simple as, okay, I'm going to the draft and I'm going to be in the MLB. It's a grind. You have to kind of start yourself over, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think he definitely would benefit for coming back next year, just because he also gets to build his draft stock up. He'll get to pitch every weekend for a top 25 team that's going to be in contention for Omaha, and it would just really be beneficial to him, in my opinion. And that's really going to do it for all the questions this week. Not a busy week with questions, but again, all good questions in general. I'll talk a little bit more about this series with Arkansas for a second. Like I said, the series starts tonight at 7 p.m. at Founders Park. I believe there's going to be fireworks tonight, which should be interesting. Should be a good time. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think the pitching staff's in good shape for this weekend. I think with leaving TBA for Sunday and also starting Jones on Saturday, if Kimball cannot go a ton tonight, if he can only go like 4 or 5 innings and you need to use a good chunk of your bullpen, you're able to, because I think tomorrow with Jones on Saturday, you're probably getting 6 or 7 innings out of him. And that way you really don't have to burn through the bullpen as much. Now, if Jones does get roughed up and it is one of those situations where you do have to use the bullpen again really, really big, then you're probably not winning the series. But we'll see. I think it does, bode well for South Carolina to do this. And then Sunday, whoever's left that really hasn't pitched much, whether it's Ty Good, Matthew Becker, Tyler Pitzer, one of those guys would probably start Sunday. And then offensively, I'm interested to see how they do against Hagen Smith tonight, right? Hagen Smith, high strikeout, low walk guy. South Carolina does strike out a little bit. How are they going to do with their opportunities when they are able to get runners on base? Are they going to be able to drive them in? Are they going to be striking out a ton? That's kind of the question. Hagen Smith's a good left-handed pitcher with a lot of good off speed, but he also mixes in a good fastball and throws a lot of strikes. So if South Carolina can be aggressive and hit good pitches and make him a little bit ruffled up a little bit, I think they're going to be in good position to win this weekend. But we'll see what happens. It should be a fun weekend regardless, combined with the spring game, which I also plan on being at. So we're going to see what happens, but it's going to be a good weekend, hopefully. And be sure to stay locked into GamecockCentral.com for all your baseball, basketball, football coverage, Should be a good weekend for South Carolina athletics, hopefully. And like I said before, I'll be there for all 3 games this weekend, and I'll have my game stories, live updates on the Insiders Forum. Also, be continuing to do Leaving the Yard with Jack Veltri after every game, and it should be a good time. So yeah, like I said before, do you guys have any questions you want answered for next week's episode? Be sure to drop them in the comment section below on this YouTube video, or I will have a post on the Insiders Forum where you can leave any of your Gamecock athletic questions that you would like answered. Until then, I'm Jack Veltri. Have a good one.